Looks like old Dricus and Izzy are finally set to get it on. These two are the reason this channel is watched like a hawk by the overseers. Oh, we have a bit of history in the lore of TKO talk when it comes to these two. Dricus Du Plessis did not start this. Israel did. And it's not the use of the that's bothersome, though inappropriate and quite classless for a champion with a Puma deal. Just want to say that. It's cringe. It's just as cringe as when Daniel Cormier, remember when Daniel Cormier slipped out of his Peter Griffin Family Guy character and tried to call John Jones a Du Plessis and Izzy got off on the wrong foot in quick fashion, and to be honest, it wasn't over anything really worthwhile. What took it to the stratosphere was Izzy mighty morphing into Petty Sonya for several weeks as the MMA media, of course, just had to know Kamaru's and Izzy's thoughts on Dricus being an African. For one reason or another, Izzy consistently threw Francis Ngannou into the conversation as well, but he framed the conversation as if Dricus directly attacked the three of them.
I've never questioned him as an African because, yeah, you were born in Africa. Of course, you're an African. I've never questioned that. But who the is this crack telling me who the I am, who the Kamaru is, who the Ngannou is? I'm like, are you dumb? As a product of colonization, you're trying to tell me who the I am. You can take the boy out of Africa, but you can never take the Africa out of the boy. I never ever did that to him. I never discredited him as an African. I just, okay, there you are, cool. You want to make a fight, cool. But to tell me who the I am, that pissed me off. And that's why he's my next fight. Because I don't want to fight anyone else. That this one pisses me off.
He tried to discredit the Three Kings and say that he's the real true African champion. And I was just like, it's a weird mindset, bro. Like, he came in the UFC, I knew who it was a little bit, but I didn't go, oh, who the fuck's this fake dude coming in? I just said, cool, he's another African in the UFC. But then him discrediting me, Francis Ngannou, Maru Usman, that ticked me off a little bit. So that's what started this. But again, I'll finish it.
I really feel like the only person involved that got what Dricus meant was Kamaru Usman. Of course, a dork had to hit him up one media day to be messy, just like Kamaru's friend that informed him of Dricus' statements from the get. But I think Kamaru understood it because he and Izzy had been saying the same thing about themselves at various times.
After he defeated Colby Covington at UFC 245. Remember, just because you go over to Africa and you're raised in Africa does not mean that you're African. Listen to what Usman said after his fight with Colby Covington at UFC 245.
And then the last thing for me, the crowd was chanting USA, and it seemed like it was for him. You know, you're an American citizen, you've been here for a long time.
It's for me too, what you talking about? They was chanting USA for me. Let's be honest, I've said it time and time again. I'm more American than him. You know, I am what it means to be an American. And so that's what it means to be an American. It's not necessarily, oh, just because you're born here, you feel privileged is what it means to be an American. No.
And so just because you went over to South Africa and you're raised there, that doesn't make you African.
I'm an immigrant. I'm the real American. It's just another opportunity that's trying to hide behind patriotism.
The majority of the MMA community and MMA media, if that's the nomenclature we are going to continue to ride with, comes across to me as being unaware of the history of Africa and South Africa, which on the surface is understandable, and in my view is not very important outside of market expansion, perhaps, regarding these two fighting in the UFC. But when Israel and Dricus and the like speak on the subject, 99% of us would be outsiders and well uninformed. Dricus declared he had a goal of being the first real African champion, and MMA media, not Africans or black people, worldwide took issue with it. MMA media or combat sports or circus combat sports in general just have to always stir some shit up. It's a fascinating phenomenon I'll never understand. I understand great stories story and great drama increases interest in a fight exponentially most of the time. But I don't understand why it's left up to the media in press conferences and through social media to make it happen. The main problem is it's basically speculation. Even when you interview fighters, you're getting a 50-50 chance of getting the truth out of them. They are programmed, a lot of them, many of them, are very much programmed to say the same thing over and over again. And most people don't even know how to talk to them. They just keep asking the same fucking questions.
Asking the same fucking questions.
The in-house preferred media members that TKO Group is beginning to mobilize are sweeping over actual reporters, journalists, fans, turned media members, etc. They play along to whatever narrative is put to ink on the production notes. They are employed by the companies. Nothing in press conferences for the UFC or the WWE is real. This is not something I'm against at all, as long as you're not trying to lie to my fucking face. However, an almost all-white media frenzy with a few Hispanics sprinkled throughout drove the narrative of Dricus' statements being about black and white as opposed to Africa in general, as in the continent, being born there and living there, things like that. The media and internet freaks wouldn't bother me at all if the energy was the same all around, but it isn't. MMA media picks and chooses buzzwords as headlines over informative content 8 out of 10 times. It's why nobody said shit when Kamaru Usman said he was an American, a real American, more American than Colby Covington. Nobody gave a batted fucking eyelash about Izzy saying he's an Australian, New Zealander, Chinese national. No, we were all just enamored with his love of anime and his new contract and Puma deal. As I wear an Adesanya shirt right now recording this.
Wild, receiving uppercut with a smile. Get back around house, then go sweat the pounds out.
I truly feel like Adesanya felt he had to play a role. I'm not saying that he wasn't himself. In fact, I think he was more himself than we ever saw during this whole thing that happened leading up to him ruining Dricus' win and the story we all know behind Sean Strickland. Like his back was up against the wall. He reacted or responded, whichever word he wants to use, in a way he felt the media and his followers expected. Stylebender's saying he wanted to drag his carcass across the place he lives, referring to MMA DDP. I will pause a moment so you can catch that, because I feel like saying his name and the quote in one sentence would trigger the PCPs on me. I believe that moment was the spot that it began spiraling out of control. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but to me, Dricus was treated unfairly in this little pointless tiff, I call it. He was made out to be the villain, which, through the lens of the media, came across to Izzy as if he was trying to be the bully in not only a regional, but racial way. Dricus never said anything over the top or even approaching the line. From what I could tell, only white, American, and Canadian media members drove this narrative of Dricus being a bit racially villainous. Not black Americans such as myself, not even Africans. Francis Ngannou was barely even fucking bothered by it. You know, I gotta come out real quick and say this. It's pretty wild to me how blown out of proportion all of this got when it could have been a pretty badass build that wouldn't depend on some kind of racial tension. I don't like having to point out the reality of this, but it's simply undeniable. The idea of two fighters from Africa being elite and fighting for a middleweight championship in the UFC really should have been interesting enough, but we have a total mess, and unfortunately it's the climate that we live in, so I'm here to bitch about it. Now, as we all know, Dricus did the unthinkable in finishing Robert Whittaker in what was his best performance to date. Yes, I'm including his championship win, but a very exhausted and reckless Cloud came and unleashed a storm of bullshit to ruin basically everything for the middleweight division. Izzy morphed into Drunk Adesanya, possibly drunk ski slalom Adesanya. Hopefully it wasn't ski slalom Adesanya, because I'd hate to see such a massively talented mixed martial artist fall down that path. Anyway, in this much stronger and darker form of Petty Sanya, we witness the inevitable.
My African brother right here. What's up? Let's go. Yeah. What's up? Yeah, my brother. Yeah, my African brother. I'm African, but I ain't the brother of your son. No, my for real.
What Israel did that night is completely embarrassing. It's just as embarrassing as any other controversial topic that has came across the UFC in their press conferences and other things outside of the business. People with things like Puma deals and not only above average, but 1% of the world God-given talent shouldn't use their platforms to be so publicly petty. In my opinion, I hope Adesanya has grown from this situation and other controversies that have surrounded him over the past 2 years. Some people look up to him. What he could have done this entire time is talk about how he gonna whoop that ass and we'll see who the real African champion is or the real African is. Of course, the internet is full of goons that will make racist memes and whatnot, but Stylebender himself didn't have to take it in that direction. Still, I understand why. It's an intrinsic defense mechanism in my opinion. I've done something similar plenty of times in the past. Most men have. It's basically puff your chest in hopes of avoiding the thing. The other reason besides that is that it's once again completely unfair to Dricus, or at least on the surface. Dricus got his words taken out of context and blown out of proportion. Dricus didn't get to enjoy his well-earned and shocking victory over Robert Whittaker. Dricus didn't get to even get back to Africa before he was offered a date less than 2 months away to fight the dude that just shit on his victory and called him a reverse racial slur. Dricus got rush offered Stylebender for $300. I think they even offered it to Izzy before Strickland in January, which is a whole nother can of worms I've covered in the UFC 300 video linked below. Yes, the MMA DDP has been treated a bit unfairly in my opinion.
And he has not made any mention about black or white. Everyone else keeps fucking doing it. By the way, the person in the post fight, his name is Dricus, not Driscus. Man, MMA media so on top of their shit, so good. Dricus Du Plessis. This motherfucker thinks he's like making some big Muhammad Ali moment or something, and he's not. He's just fucking embarrassing himself. And I'll just let Dricus respond to it. He summed it up perfectly.
I mean, you saw tonight, I'm prepared. I'm prepared for everything. Everything he says, anything he's behaving like a clown in there. You know, that's not how a champion behaves. That's not how a man behaves. He's behaving like a child. Conduct yourself like a champion. There's people looking up to you and you're behaving like that? Nah. You know, if that sells tickets, good for him. I'll sell tickets my way. I'm a gentleman, I'm a man, and I'll behave like a man.
I was always gonna run a SQUAB talk about this fight once it was announced, and I had a feeling UFC would do something special to hype it up. Well, so far they haven't. I thought this video would be a banger video, but have y'all watched it? This video opens up with Drunk Adesanya ruining Dricus' victory speech, then just plays their fights. I mean, what the fuck? I imagine they're going to do a little something more than this, right? Not just the same old embedded, this should be yet another gigantic fight. right? Are they gonna do it justice? Since I'm removing the previous videos covering this incident, IFW of 2023, here are some cuts from it. I'm not re-recording the vocals, but the visual component will have some addendums. If you have seen this video or not interested in my initial reaction or response, you can skip to this.
Oh, don't worry about it. He's black. That's no big deal. Well, of course not. Of course not. But it is a big deal if Dricus says it, or anything of the sort that even implies it. So we're fighting on unfair grounds here. Why is Israel making this so much about race? Dricus has never said anything about white or black. Dricus didn't deserve the treatment that Adesanya gave him. Why do we keep letting drunk and coked up millionaires get in front of a camera and a microphone? All Dricus wants to do is represent where he's from. He's a proud man. He's proud of what he's accomplished. He's proud of his team. He's proud of his abilities. He's proud of his physique. Why is that such a fucking problem for Israel Adesanya? All of this black and white fucking real African bullshit is manufactured. He was sitting there with his brother after he beat the fuck out of Alex Pereira, talking about who the fuck are you to call me this, and then started saying the cracker shit left and right, left and right. And while I know that holds not the same impact to the majority of white people, it's still a racial slur that should not be said. It's inappropriate. Show me where he said he was a realer African, or Kamaru, Francis, and Israel were fake Africans. That is the dumbest shit, and it's now in their heads, dude. And Israel has a following of millions, and he's regurgitating that fake information that is causing a lot of fucking hatred towards a fighter that isn't deserved. But he feels that pressure just like Kamaru does. That's just my fucking opinion about it.
Look, I have to be honest with myself, and I hope others are as well. Even if people are not going to agree, this fight shouldn't be taking place right now. At least in my opinion. This would already be over if the UFC hadn't dicked around with UFC 300. If you're subscribed to this channel, then you already know I have been on the business that should have been UFC 300 almost as much as Juliana Pena and Mackenzie Dern. I have seen X accounts and much larger YouTube channels than me that are beginning to complain about the UFC being worse ever since 300 went down. Once again, I told you all this was going to happen last November. I was consistent with my points and arguments, and now here we are. Dricus and Izzy. Yes, could have already happened as far back as 2023, fall of 2023. They took Strickland for a layup, in my opinion. They took Juliana Pena and John Jones for granted. They lied to us. They covered it up with a drag out of overhyped, overpromised clips and interviews. They used influencers as tools to get around the real questions during this time from what you would call real or legacy media. They had nothing for Canada due to this lackadaisical approach to UFC 300. This was due to their arrogance and the pending antitrust lawsuit that turned out to be a 15-year nothing burger. Listen, I do not believe the UFC is going to trial now that Judge Boulware suddenly doesn't like the deal. I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, and my thought is, however it happened and went down, this was intentional delay by the courts. Dana White has been doing a victory lap ever since. I don't believe the Howie Mandel thing was a scripted event. I think Dana was exhausted and just bored with talking at the moment and didn't want to talk about shit that was brought up he didn't want brought up. The dude hates that kind of shit. Performing, theatrics, and always has, or at least has claimed to. Not really a big prankster to the public. Why the fuck is he gonna join Howie Mandel to pull one on us?
Any other stupid questions?
Heated point up for debate is how and why Stylebender gets to fight Dricus next and not Sean Strickland. I could go on about all the issues with rankings and who gets what fights, but ever since Sean O'Malley leaped from 13 to fight the number 2 Piotr Jan at the time, even before then, we should all know by now that all of this is what a lot of internet MMA fans hate or pretend to hate. Pro wrestling. It's just pro wrestling with unscripted bouts. That's it. The ones that try to be in it for honor and dignity and the martial arts and combat spirit are all greatly appreciated, and that's the stuff that keeps me here. But the UFC is not a business of honor. It certainly isn't a business of fairness. Then again, what business falls into either of those categories? I'm not mad at the UFC about it, but what they need to do is what I've been saying for months now. Don't lie to us. Talking to you too, WWE.
You're kidding me.
Du Plessis and Adesanya are set to fight in Perth, Australia, the same location where Sean Strickland defeated the former champ. One may believe that this is to give Izzy a hometown advantage, but I'm not so sure. He decided to sit down with Ariel out of nowhere and called the entire continent racists. This is Petty Sanya at his finest. Izzy's track record for public speaking and behavior keeps losing points. Even Luke Thomas tried to give a pass at one point, years ago, when he called people in general stupid. I, for one, can agree with him on a certain level, of course, but I'd never say something like that on camera during an interview while trying to promote a fight and claiming to be this leader of this new wave of fighters from New Zealand and Africa and such, with a Puma deal. It's not about disagreement, it's just about professionalism. This should be the same thing for all fighters, including Sean Strickland. When you have all this stuff going on and then you go and say something like that, you come across to the majority of people as an elitist, as somebody that's better than everyone else. And even if you are, humility is the most relatable quality one's character can possess. The UFC has invested a lot of time and money into Stylebender. That contract renewal in 2020 or 2021 was a reaction or response to Francis Ngannou's stonewalling the company. That with evidence being mounted for an almost trial against them, panic mode so to speak, which is why Dana is still on a victory lap since April 13th, and why he won't shut up about Jon Jones even when someone asks him about the weather. Allegedly, in my opinion.
Jon Jones is the pound for pound best fighter in the world and the greatest fighter fucking ever. Period. No matter what you think of Jon Jones, if you were coming into a fight and you fucking got hurt, that means you're not the pound for pound best fighter in the world anymore? How does that even make sense?
Whatever the outcome of this fight will be, I don't think Israel Adesanya is a good babyface or a good heel. He has what we call in the pro wrestling business go away heat. I think he very much wants to shift the narrative. I don't see that happening. Dricus, on the other hand, nearly fell out of favor when things heated up with he and Tarzan. It seems that MMA DDP has collected himself since then and is once again rooted in being a champion and represent the good man. Personally, I like Dricus doing this. I like Dricus overall as a fan, but there is no doubt in my mind he has that alpha frat bro energy bottled up. That dude is crazy and a tank. My goodness, allegedly in my opinion. This fight should have happened long ago without any rush booking or fake claims from CKB coaches that everyone has to fight injured. Hi Kai, no prediction here. I can't wait to see it. 21 million other YouTubers will give you their expert analysis or whatever it is. I just hope I gave a little something extra on top of that. What I'm really looking forward to seeing is what Sean Strickland gets after this is all over and how he handles it.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfucker.